Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you guys once again for joining the Nine Innings podcast hosted by yours truly, Kevin Thompson, founder and CEO of Nine Capital Group. Thank you guys for joining us. As I always say, subscribe to the channel. As I always say, go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@ninecapitalgroup.com. Send us your questions. Go to the website at www.ninecapitalgroup.com. Schedule an appointment. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, engage, and also entertain. Follow us on all social media handles at 9ICAP or at MLB to CFP. Today we're bringing back Dr. John T. Harvey. We're talking about this deficit. We're talking about the debt. We're going to talk about the big, beautiful bill, how that compounds on the deficit. You don't want to miss this episode. Dr. Harvey, welcome back. Let's get it. Dr. John T. Harvey, welcome back to the show. TCU Frogs, wearing purple for this episode.
Oh, nice. I will say this: I ironed this shirt just now.
So there you go. Hey, yeah. we're coming up. We're fancy, huh?
Right. Well, I did buy the shirt at Goodwill, but otherwise, yeah.
There you go. Right, yeah. Man, let's just get right to it.
Sure.
And I know. So we've talked in our past episodes about, modern monetary theory, describing what it actually is. We've all, listen, I do agree when we're talking about a government deficit is a private sector surplus. That makes sense to me. That makes 100% sense to me. But at some point, and I know and we're going to get in, at some point, there has to be like the chickens coming home to roost, right? And we often hear about the U.S. debt, 37 trillion going to 40, refinancing this debt. People are going to come out and say, well, they're refinancing it at over 3 now. We got to bring rates down. $1.2 trillion of interest expense, almost being 20% of the revenue coming in. Dr. Harvey, is this sustainable?
Yes. What's your next question? So what you're getting at there, and as you can see, I was prepared for this.
Yes.
What you're getting at there is basically, I guess, 2 interrelated questions.
Yeah.
Let me deal with this one first. Can the U.S. be forced to default on the debt? All right. So that's one question people have. Is it possible to default on the debt? And I've got 2 pages here, and I won't make y'all suffer through this whole thing.
No. We got time, my friend. This is a Monday morning. They just passed the BBB. You know what I mean? So we got a lot to talk about. So let's start there.
Well, it is a series of quotes from scholars, from business people, from Federal Reserve officials saying that it is impossible for the United States of America to be forced to default on debt in dollars. We make dollars. China doesn't make dollars. Mexico doesn't make dollars. Now, if we borrowed all this money in pesos, we'd be screwed. The reason that Greece had a financial crisis was because they owed money in a currency they did not create.
The drugs or something like that?
Mexico had a financial crisis because they were borrowing money in dollars, in other foreign currencies. Ours is all dollars, all right? So it's not and let me just pick a couple out here. Here's one from some joker named Alan Greenspan, who was once chair of the Federal Reserve.
Okay.
Central banks can issue currency effectively without limit.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I got another one from him here somewhere. Here's a quote from a publication from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis.
Okay.
As the sole manufacturer of dollars, whose debt is denominated in dollars, the U.S. government can never become insolvent. And Dick Cheney was joking around a little bit, but Cheney says, Reagan proved that deficits don't matter. And this is a guy who was involved with the financing of World War II, Beardsley Ruml. He says the necessity for a government to tax in order to maintain both its independence and its solvency is true for state and local governments, but it's not true for the national government. Now, someone could say, well, John, that's appeal to authority. My book says this, but your book says that. And that's right, rather than a logical argument. But this is a legal issue. This is a legal issue, and therefore precedents and these quotes from these important people are extremely important. The U.S. So I've said something that to some people is going to be kind of provocative. So let me start adding some.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. Okay, so yes, you said that. But then, like, what people are saying is like, well, they're just talking their book. They're Americans. They're going to say these things about their currency because they're supposed to say these things about their currency.
Well, that would be true if we were talking about, say, the world reserve currency is the dollar right now, which we're very lucky in that, and we'd like to keep it that way. We have to convince other people that it should be. Right. So if that were what we were talking about, I would agree with you. But this isn't that. This isn't about, well, we want you to trust the currency. They're saying this is the mechanics. This is the way it actually works.
Okay.
Now, to give you a couple of historical examples, because the United States government creates its own currency. During the COVID crisis, very recent in our minds, during that summer, how much did they give everybody? $1,200? I can't even remember anymore.
Yeah, it was a lot of money. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So, where did we get that money? Did we borrow it from Europe? Did we borrow it from China?
No.
We hit the keyboard.
Yeah,
That's all we did. And that is all we ever do. The idea that we have to borrow it is only a political issue, which is easily sidestepped. All right.
Okay.
Now, I can see why, people would worry, well, gosh, the government should be under some sort of constraint because we don't trust them. In terms of creating money. And so the way we have created a constraint is we say, well, you have to sell treasury bills. Except that's so easy. That what they in fact do is, if I'm about to pay a Marine, all right, a Marine's going to get their paycheck, federal employee. So the Treasury Department just credits the account at the bank where the Marine is. There's an intermediary step, but basically they credit the account. So they just created money. All right. But now they will have contacted the Federal Reserve and they will have said, hey, we're about to pay all the Marines tomorrow. That's going to increase the money supply by this much. And then the Fed's going to be like, well, crap, then we need to sell some treasury bills to soak that money back out of the system. Now,
they reduce the reserves from the bank. They sell the reserve. I gotcha. Yeah.
Right. So the treasury bills, the Treasury Department and the Fed work very closely together on this whole relationship because the Fed is trying to target those interest rates. At the same time, the Treasury is trying to undertake, their mission, and that is they're the treasurer of the club called the United States of America. So we've been at World War II. World War II is an excellent example. We didn't borrow the money from somebody. They had all the bond drives and so forth, but those were really to reduce demand for goods and services. Yeah. The government, I don't know, I always put it this way, sort of a counterfactual. What if the United States had all the productive capacity and population that it had in 1941, but we didn't have any, dollar bills? Oh no, well, here comes Hitler. Here comes Tojo. Yeah. There's nothing we can do. Of course not. The way the federal government operates is the same way my wife ran her fourth grade class for 30 years.
Yeah.
She had something called Harvey bucks. Right?
Yeah.
So she created her own currency. And I don't know, here's a credit card. Well, actually, there's a number. Oh, no, it's on the back. Right. Yeah, I'll make a Harvey buck out of this.
Yeah.
All right. So, and then if you did something nice to another kid or something like that, she'd give you a Harvey buck.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why do I care? Why do I care about it? Well, who cares? Because she has a little thing full of treats.
Yeah.
I can trade these in for, what was that? A fidget spinner or whatever. It's one of those things.
Yeah, widgets.
Yeah. And so she created the underlying demand for Harvey bucks. Now, the U.S. government does that by saying, we're going to use these dollars to pay this Marine. Now, why are these useful at all to me? Well, because, by the way, on April 15th, you're going to need to give us some of these back.
Yeah.
And so the taxation is what creates the ultimate demand for the currency. Now, there are many other things that create the demand for the currency too, but the ultimate anchor, the thing that makes a dollar bill safer than a cryptocurrency, is the fact that on April 15th, you got to pay these suckers back.
So I got something for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
So again, let's go back to the deficit.
Yeah.
The histories are littered with failed nations that became debtor nations. Ancient Rome. The French had a revolution about this, right? So it's like, at some point, we have to realize that having a debt to GDP over 100%, 120%, that's not sustainable. And having interest payments that are going to be 20 to 25% of your gross revenue is not sustainable. And that's continually going up. So what say you about the historical context of, we've seen this happen, like we're just not reading the tea leaves. I mean, because it's not like it hasn't occurred in the past. You can name the old garb of of empires and nations that have failed strictly because of this.
I don't know of a single case where that's actually true, though. Look, I mean, you're saying the only reason Rome fell.
I'm not saying the only reason.
Well,
I'm not saying
okay. Just did. So
stop. I'm saying, but it was one of the causes.
It was a symptom.
Yeah, symptom. Okay.
It was a symptom of the real problem. So it's kind of like, oh, my brother died because he had high fever. Really? There's more. Yeah, that disease that caused the high fever. So what you're looking at in those cases are symptoms and not causes.
Okay.
The underlying causes, the French Revolution, my God. About a year or so ago, I listened to a long series of podcasts on the French Revolution. Yeah. One of the things I didn't realize was there's not a revolution. There's like revolution after revolution after revolution as they're fighting each other for power and so forth. So this had to do with power and with the way that the royals were screwing over the average person, and of course that wasn't really nearly as important as screwing over the middle class or the other the other aristocracy. So I don't know of a case where there has been a collapse of an empire because of debt. Well, and if I may back you up, because you said something else I didn't agree with.
Okay, go ahead.
And that was, it's not sustainable. For what reason?
Okay, so if we cannot have the growth, eventually, like Stephanie Kilton said, there's gonna be issues. For example, with inflation. If we can't lower rates when there's an inflationary period, we're gonna get to that point here in a second. But if inflation ends up going really, really high, then, oh my God, we have this outstanding debt where we have to raise our cost of capital. And then that makes it just compounds on the back of one another. And it just becomes that thing that you send down a snowy hill. Like it started off as a small ball, but then it becomes a huge boulder, and then it just destroys the town. Right. So again,
but why do we have to? Okay, so let's create a little scenario here.
Yeah.
Let's say that we have a terrible economic problem, like COVID. All right. So we had a terrible economic problem. We already had at that point debt that people had been saying for decades. And I don't know how old you are. I'm 64.
I'm 45. I'm an old.
All right. So I've been hearing it longer than you have. We're all gonna die.
But you're right. But it's not the fact that it's the debt that's so high. It's the rate of acceleration of the debt that people are concerned about. You know what I mean?
All right. So let's go back to COVID though.
Yeah.
Because what you're saying is, gosh, what if something happens where we need to have the ability to say spend a deficit or whatever? We did that during COVID, and it was no problem whatsoever.
Okay. Well, but what I'm saying is, it's the rate of change. Like you had, we were 2 trillion or something. Reagan increased it. Nixon increased it. Clinton kind of brought it down because he cut Medicaid, and everybody's scared. Everybody's afraid to say Clinton was a Republican. He really was. This is calling.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you. Yeah.
But he cut Medicaid, but he raised education spending.
And private sector debt skyrocketed.
Yeah, you're right. Private sector debt skyrocketed, but he was cutting spending. He was cutting spending.
Right.
But everybody's afraid to see okay, well, that came down, and then boom, Bush, we had a bunch of military spending, and then boom, Obama, and then bang, Trump, right? It's
Actually, Obama was another Republican in terms of his spending.
Exactly.
After the initial, fiscal stimulus, then the government spending went way down. And you can read State of the Union address after State of the Union address with Obama, where he says, "Man, we've got to cut spending." And so Trump didn't do that, and the economy actually grew faster under Trump. Once you take out the period where we can't blame Obama for the financial crisis, and certainly what they did to recover from it was good. But then he cut way back. But anyway, so I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Yeah. We'll get to that.
People have been saying this for years.
Yeah,
for years. I mean, and either we just haven't got there yet. Mm-hmm. Which is what's in people's gut, because people misinterpret the way the federal government's debt really works.
Okay.
They're thinking of themselves as personal debt, but it's not. The federal government is like Melanie, my wife, in front of her 4th grade class, and, "Oh no, I'm running out of Harvey bucks." "Oh, that's right. All I got to do is make it up."
But eventually revenue has to increase, which means taxes would eventually have to go up.
No, they don't. You know what Melanie's problem is?
Or you would have to have more productivity and more people in the workforce.
That's the issue.
But then here you go. Now you have this generation of kids who say, "I'm not feeling that. I don't want to be in this world like that where I'm just a number, and I don't want that anymore."
Well, so now you're battling against that. Very good numbers on top of that. But to stick to the Melanie Harvey bucks example for just a second, her problem is if her little basket of goodies runs out.
Yeah.
Then there's no reason. We have to have more of those things in order to make the currency valuable, in order to keep the whole situation running. So if we, I don't know, let's say raise tariffs and, deport all kinds of people and so forth, that's a problem.
Yeah, it's a hell of a problem.
The amount of money that the government needs to spend. And remember, let's think about what they're really doing. They are activating, or what they should be doing, rather. They are activating idle resources.
Okay.
The ability to activate idle resources is limited only by the resources. That's it. And so what we got to pay to do it is beside the point. Now, we can get into the details of it. Which John Harvey does, by the way, in his forthcoming book. Yes.
And by the way, you got to resend me that link, because all the links just didn't work getting to your access to all of your stuff. Jack, your
okay.
Just resend me that via email. By so.
Yeah. But in the book, I finally this stuff takes a while to explain, because you've got to take like one little step at a time. In fact, my chapter 5 is the chapter where I go over how do I think the world should be run. It's policy recommendations. And it's a long, the thing I read to you earlier was from the section on, how do we finance this?
Okay.
How do we finance a job program, for example? I didn't used to think this. I didn't used to believe this. I used to teach in my classes, we got to pay the debt off eventually, or at least, not let it grow too much, that during expansions, we should accumulate surpluses, and during recessions, we should have deficits.
100%.
And that's what I taught, and that's what I thought. And it took me a long time of reading some people that I years, Randy Ray and Stephanie Kelton, I've known for a very long. Randy Ray and I got our PhDs about the same time, and I would read something of his and I think that makes sense, but it doesn't feel right.
It doesn't feel right, man. It just doesn't feel right.
But guess what the problem is? The feeling, because the feeling has been driven into you by a misunderstanding of the way the system works.
I guess.
Let me give you another example.
Yeah.
So I've given a talk on this, I don't know, 24 times, something like that, on how the debt really works. My poor wife, who has not only heard it at home, but has gone to these talks.
Okay.
It wasn't until the 3rd time that she saw the talk, she said, "Now I get it." It took her a while to tear down all the things that she had been taught before.
Okay. So I'm going to stop you right there.
Yeah.
Then if that is the case, why can't we have full health care, infrastructure spending, all these things? Just let's get it done. What's holding us back?
Politics.
Okay.
in politics. Absolutely, 100%. In fact,
well, you're true, because the reality is China does it. I mean, China, they have a state-owned government, and they put the money out there.
Yeah. I mean, every other developed country and many developing countries in the world have a system of national health care. And they pay a fraction of what we do, in exchange for which they get longer lifespans and lower infant mortality. So yeah, our problem, in fact, the very end of my chapter 5, where I go over the policy recommendations, is, okay, why aren't we doing this?
Yeah.
And there's a fellow whose work I came across, Richard Norgaard, who talks about something he calls economism. He says economism is the modern religion. People take for granted the way the economic system works, and it doesn't even occur to them. It's not like they reject the idea we can change it. They assume we just can't. So, capitalism, the market system, does some wonderful things. All right. Restaurants. I mean, we don't need the government to create restaurants. Private sector does it already. And the private sector does a nice job of, if your restaurant sucks, it shuts down. And it does a nice job of, boy, I've always wanted to create. And by the way, I feel this very strongly about entrepreneurs. Okay. Entrepreneurs like to create. They like to make something. Now, if I get rich along the way, that's great. But I want to be the one who has created this restaurant that everybody loves to go to on Friday and Saturday night. So, market system does some great things. Doesn't create full employment. Doesn't address social problems that aren't profitable. If it's a social problem that's profitable, well, sure. But if it's a social problem that isn't profitable or isn't profitable enough to like education, it's profitable. We have private schools. I teach at one. But it's not profitable enough to provide education on a level that we believe is necessary in a democracy.
So let's start there. Let's go there. So we're talking about markets. We're talking about QE1, QE2, QE3, Operation Twist, you name it. And we've seen markets go up year after year after year ever since the great financial crisis. I often tell people this. I say, if we don't get the same amount of government spending into the private sector, you shouldn't expect the same level of returns in the stock market, because most of those returns is exactly what you saw, government spending. Am I wrong to believe that? Or because, yeah, we grew.
Right.
What capitalism created,
well,
6 or 7 companies.
It's just a
6
tool.
or 7 companies. 6 or 7 companies that are worth trillions of dollars now.
Yeah.
There's a huge divide. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's okay. That's okay. No, there is absolutely a correlation between government spending and profits. And a guy named Michael Koleski, not a very well-known economist, but gosh, he was great. He has these famous Koleskian equations where he breaks down, sort of income distribution and so. And I love going over this in class.
Yeah,
it's just very simple assumptions, and all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, when the government spends, that creates profit. In fact, you mentioned Stephanie Kelton earlier. I saw her giving a talk one time where she showed the prospectus from some big investment company, Merrill Lynch or whatever. And in there, they were warning their investors, by the way, it looks like they're going to cut back on government spending. So this means we're probably going to have a reduction in profits in the economy in general. So it's not one-to-one, but there is a correlation. And this is the irony of people being against government spending who are in the private sector. It's generating profit for you.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, I don't understand why that. Well, it's philosophical.
Yeah. No, it was political.
Yeah. Well, that's funny you should say it that way, because for years I always thought, the rich, they just have a different philosophy. And my wife said, no, they're just greedy. And I mean, she grew up wealthy, and so she's like, they're terrified that somebody's getting something. Yeah. That should have been mine. And so anyway, that creates an additional problem on top of everything else. Our bigger problem right now is that economic policy is done so poorly in mainstream economics. There was an article, I can't remember if we talked about this last time or not. There was an article that came out in 2016 by a guy named Paul Romer, who later went on to win a Nobel Prize in economics. So he's a mainstream economist. Mm-hmm. He wrote in that article that modern macroeconomic and research is so bad, we shouldn't even consider it scientific anymore. And macroeconomics, those are the economics of unemployment, inflation, GDP growth, all the stuff that I would think the average person on the street would think, oh, you have a degree in economics, you must know stuff about those things, is so unpopular with graduate students in economics nowadays that they openly avoid taking the macro classes. And I have a great quote that I pulled from another book. This student says, and these are students at like Harvard, MIT, and so forth. The student said, it's not that I have anything against the subject matter of macroeconomics. That's inherently interesting. It's that the way they teach it is so unrealistic, it doesn't make any sense to me. So that's where we're screwed. Because and the Republicans both take their advice from those people.
This is the main point of contention in our society today. People will fail to realize, hey, gas prices are going down. Hey, that has nothing to do with the rate of inflation that has happened over the last 2 years. And although it's slowing, my prices remain elevated.
That's another issue. Not only is there the mainstream explanation of inflation, and I feel like I'm a liar right now, by the way, because I got to figure people listening to this say, well, that can't be right. I mean, this Harvey guy. Yeah,
I get called a liar every day, so it's all good. I'm married.
That's right. But I wish that what I was saying wasn't true. And I don't like being the outsider. I don't. I wish I was in the in crowd. But I hear what the in crowd in economics has to say. I was like, that just doesn't make any sense. So let me give you a quick rundown of the mainstream view of inflation, because it's going to be familiar, because it's what we hear in the news all the time. Mm-hmm. Oh, unemployment is so low and the economy is growing so fast it's driving up prices. All right. So we should therefore step in and jack up the interest rates and lower the level of economic activity. Now, step back for just a second and ask yourself, what's wrong with low unemployment and high rates of GDP growth? I mean, might that cause some inflation here and there? Sure. Maybe people get more excited about buying water bottles, and they bid up the price of water bottles. Well, so we're going to throw the economy into recession because of that? Or are we going to say, ooh, this created an opportunity for entrepreneurs, that the price of water bottles went up, I should make more water bottles, or I should shift my production into water bottles, right? That's the way the system, what an irony. This is one of the places where capitalism works really well. That when prices go up in a sector, it attracts entrepreneurs, it attracts resources, which is precisely what the consumer wanted. So if we have inflation that's resulting from the economy growing really fast, we let it happen, because it's going to then create incentives for entrepreneurs to do what it is that the consumers want. On the other hand, if we get inflation from the Russians invading Ukraine, then why would we then throw our economy into recession because of it? I mean, the reason the prices go up because of, the Russian invasion is a limited supply of oil and the limited supply of grain. How do we, the only thing, and this kind of goes back to something I said earlier, in this case, the inflation is simply a symptom, all right?
It's more transitory, the word transitory in this situation.
And how do we solve it? I mean, do we solve inflation caused by a Russian invasion of Ukraine by throwing the U.S. economy into recession? Well, kind of, because if you take enough money away from me, I can't bid up the price of bread anymore, all right? But that doesn't really solve the underlying problem, which is a shortage. There is no kind of inflation that raising interest rates actually addresses. None. And I got to tell you, in my chapter 3, in poor Melanie, I brought up subjecting her to this already. I had her read chapter 3, The Poor Start on Inflation, for me several times, and it just wasn't getting there. I had to write it over and over and over to finally come up with a clear explanation of how things really work. Because what we've been, I don't say what we've been taught, well, yeah, what we've been taught too, it is an oversimplification. So there is no kind of inflation that you really address with higher interest rates. If it's because the economy is growing, let the inflation go. because that's going to be an opportunity to entrepreneurs. There's nothing bad about that kind of inflation. All right. If I'm voluntarily going out and buying more water bottles, then why should the government step in and reduce my income to stop me from doing that? All right. So that doesn't make sense. And furthermore, the people who are hurt the most are always the poor. I mean, they're not the ones bidding up the prices. Any other kind of inflation, like caused by, we just had a disaster here in Texas, and that may cause some prices to go up. Okay, if the prices go up, then we need to throw the economy into recession. No, of course not. We would be, the big thing John Harvey says in his book, inflation is always sectoral. It is always starting in some place at some time. And therefore, solutions must be focused on that sector. And yeah, go ahead.
So that would be all fine and dandy if we lived in an Adam Smith world where competition can come in and bring prices back down.
Oh, you mean the first incidents? Except that the way you address lack of competition isn't by throwing the economy into recession.
True.
So you still, and that's what I end up going through like 7 different examples in the book of different kinds of inflation. And at the end of every one is like, yeah, raising interest rates wouldn't help. Raising interest rates wouldn't help. Now, if we want to address the concentration of power, which we absolutely should, that should be done via the government's antitrust laws, which, of course, starting under Reagan, we started ignoring. So at least Trump, the last time he was president, he did, though I can't remember what the merger was.
He mentioned it.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Okay. But we haven't even been talking about it for years. And of course, the Democrats have become so dependent on that income from these, concentrated wealthy firms that,
I mean, they're California and New York, right? So it is, yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. So anyway, there is no kind of inflation. The inflation is always sectoral. I tell my students, all you got to do, it's not hard, is look up BLS CPI in Google, Bureau of Labor Statistics, Consumer Price Index, and then wham, it'll come up with the most recent numbers, and it'll be the breakdown. And you'll see, some prices rose faster than the average rate of inflation, some rose slower, and some fell. So that's the way you figure out what's really going on.
I recently did a backdated search on the unemployment numbers. I said, hey, what's going on? And I looked at the last 5 or 6 months, and I looked at all the revisions. The revisions were all negative. Negative 201,000 jobs. They're not going to say anything about the negative revisions of the last 5 or 6 months, but they will tell you that headline number. I'm like,
and that's typical of any government in power, of any party in power. Now, what worries me is if they start messing with the people who calculate the numbers in the first place, which so far we've left alone.
We believe.
People who are calculating the numbers,
we believe they have.
I have reasonable confidence that they. Oh, you mean like so far in this administration?
Yeah, I don't. Like this is what's concerning to me, because I got an email. I'm an enrolled agent, so I get a lot of tax stuff and whatever.
Right.
I'm not sure if you got the email, but Social Security Administration came out with an email.
I deleted it.
You didn't get it?
I deleted it. I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish. Yeah.
Did you delete it?
Yes, and unsubscribed.
Yeah, but they came out with an email saying, this is a great Trump administration. I'm like, what just happened here? This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen.
Or actually the other way around. I unsubscribed and then I deleted it.
Yeah.
No, you're right. That was very worrisome, because clearly that was political coming from this government agency. The folks that calculate the statistics, and of course, this is why there are so many revisions. It's so complicated. All right.
Yeah.
And so far, they appear to have been left alone. And what worries me is unemployment's going to go up, GDP growth is going to go down, and we're just not going to, we're not going to have the data points to see what's going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have a British and an Irish passport, so I'm set.
You're right. You're right.
I'm set to go if need be.
My buddy next door is thinking about moving to Thailand, so it's all good. Hey,
nice.
So a couple more questions. Thank you. This is powerful as always, because economics, I know it can be drab sometimes, but it's necessary.
It's our lives.
Yeah. The dollar depreciation this year. Like, I mean, I was talking to a guy recently. They were saying, man, if the debt gets out of control, because we buy our own debt, we do all that, we can force banks to buy it and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, sovereign countries come in and buy some debt as well. Japan, China, what have you. If they start stepping away, like they quote unquote almost like you started seeing it in the markets now. But if they continue to start stepping away and say, hey, we want a higher rate because you're at $40 trillion, you're at $50 trillion, we deserve a higher rate for what money we're going to give you. What does that do to not only the dollar, but us in our capacity to borrow?
We don't need to borrow. I mean, so that part's kind of off the table. If they want to dump it, go ahead. I remember one time under the Obama administration, I believe Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State back then. And on TV, they had this thing where she'd gone to China to thank them for buying our treasury bills. So there was no brick nearby, so I was unable to throw one through the TV. I was like, God, that's not the way this works. And the reason, because let me back off and address a separate issue here. The reason why China owns so much of our debt is because of our trade deficit. It has nothing directly to do with the budget deficit.
100%. I agree with that.
Yeah. And in fact, I have another talk that I give where I talk about that. And to give the background for that talk, I looked back over the past 10 years, I couldn't remember now, of all the countries to whom we had the biggest trade deficits. And then I looked at all the countries who owned the most of our national debt. It's the same countries.
Yeah, they're just buying our exports
right.
or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, when I'm done selling stuff, I'm China. When I'm done selling stuff to the US and I've bought all I want to buy, I'm like, oh, I got some money left over. Well, I guess I could have it in, a barren dollar bill, or I could make it into a treasury bill, which is still the safest, which was the safest asset on the planet so far as we know. But okay, so that's one thing.
Yeah.
The reason they own it is because of the trade deficit, not because of the national debt. The national debt is what made those particular assets available, but the trade deficit is why they accumulated them. But more important question that you had was implied in there. Right now the dollar is the world reserve currency.
1970, right? Or
1973.
Decoupled from the gold standard.
Right. And then the dollar, actually, it's kind of interesting. Do you know who Jamie Galbraith is down at University of Texas?
No. Oh, you know what? Galbraith?
Yeah.
And
And his father was a very famous economist back in the 60s and 70s. And Jamie Galbraith is outstanding. We've had him up to TCU and I've had beer with him and stuff, which he paid for. So that right there, I was like, yeah, that's great. What a guy. Oh, and I will tell you this too, actually. So he's been at the University of Texas for a while now. And after TCU's Rose Bowl victory, back in whatever year that was, 2000 something, I'm walking along in the lobby at an economics conference, and I walk past this guy with a raincoat and a hat on who suddenly just stops. And he takes off his hat and bows to me. And he says, on New Year's Day, every true Texan was a Horned Frog fan. And that was it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I forgot where I was.
But
reserve currency. All right, so 1973. The what do you call it? Bretton Woods collapses.
Yep.
The dollar falls like a rock after that because the U.S. is considered to be the reason why it all fell apart. And I teach a class.
That's when you say Saudi Arabia, petrodollars, et cetera, right?
It's getting there. All that stuff's happening at once. There were already problems emerging before that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that certainly put a nail in the coffin. And so then, if you remember, we have all the inflation, and in the early 80s, they're jacking up U.S. interest rates to unbelievable levels for reasons that they think they're trying to control inflation is what they're doing. But that's the story I've always told, right? Well, I got to be the host of a podcast, I think it was last year now, at the Levy Institute, and the guest was Jamie Galbraith.
Okay.
And somehow this came up, and he's like, oh, no, that's not what was going on at all. He said, I was a staffer in Congress at the time.
Okay.
They knew exactly what they were doing with those high interest rates. They were trying to get the dollar back in a strong position as reserve currency. That was their real goal. Nobody really thought they were fighting inflation, even though that's the story told in textbooks, in history books. Wow. So I had to change part of my book, by the way, because I was still working at that point. So wonderful situation. The dollar is the world reserve currency. I don't know, this is probably made in China. Let's see here. I don't want to spill water everywhere. U.S. and foreign China. Who would have thought? Maybe in China. Okay, the Chinese happily accepted, I say pieces of paper, electronic entries, in exchange for that. They know we didn't have any stuff to trade for, at least not enough to make up for the trade deficit. They happily accept little pieces of paper. What a wonderful situation to be in. Meanwhile, if you're Mexico, or let's take a smaller Zimbabwe. All right, let's take Zimbabwe. We'd like to buy some of your goods and services using our Zimbabwean currency. Like, yeah, that's a great joke. Tell me another one. So Zimbabwe is forced to try to get hard currencies they've gone through several rounds of figuring out how to control their problems, which, by the way, are not because they're printing too much money. If it was that would be an easy fix. They have fundamental social and economic problems that the inflation is a side effect of that. Anyway, so we don't ever have to do that. We don't have to borrow money in somebody else's currency or earn it in somebody else's currency in order to buy whatever we want. We are in a glorious position right now. And my main area is exchange rates. And so for years, I'd get somebody in a situation like this asking me what would happen if the U.S. dollar were no longer the world reserve currency. That's all. It would really suck. I mean, it would. It would not be unmanageable because, of course, every other country in the world manages somehow, but we'd have a new worry. But I would then add to that, well, how the hell is that going to happen? Are people going to start using the Chinese yuan? Don't forget, China is a communist dictatorship. I want to put all my savings in the currency of a communist dictatorship? Okay, well, what about the euro? Well, the euro is really, 27 different economies? And on top of that, especially after the Greek crisis and the crises that they had, it doesn't look all that safe. So I said the dollar, at least by default, is still the safest. We are threatening that right now.
100%. So think about what we lose if we lose the world reserve currency. The ability to sanction, the ability to control economies around the globe.
Which is probably a bad thing, politically, but it's certainly comfortable. And it's not as if the things that they're doing are somehow helpful in some other way. So we had Scott Bassett come on, not on my show, of course, but on TV yesterday, a couple days ago. Yeah, we like to see what the crypto space can because that allows us to dump a bunch of exactly. How ridiculous that's. Now I get why we want to be first because hey, man, if we can force everything, especially the stable coins, to be backed by USDs, we get ahead of it, right?
Yeah.
But all the other stuff, man. I just don't understand. Like, man, you're giving people other opportunities to do some crazy stuff that you yourself don't necessarily understand. Am I wrong on that premise?
I don't think so at all. I remember I got a call from somebody at Reuters some time ago, to interview, and she identified herself initially as their economist that does stuff with cyber cryptocurrency. So we got done with the interview, and then I said, I had made some comment about cryptocurrency at some point. She's like, well, why do you not think that's a good thing? And I went back to ultimately they want these back on April 15th. That's what creates the value. There is I think we may have talked about this last time. I've got 2 Eric Davis rookie cards. Eric Davis is great. And you know how much they're worth? Absolutely freaking nothing if nobody else cares about Eric Davis. All right. The government does not say, oh, I didn't realize you had some Eric Davis rookie cards. Oh, well, you can pay part of your taxes with that. No. If that was,
you got to exchange those for hard currency.
I can try. Those things, and that doesn't mean I don't think those things should exist, but I do think that there's a fundamental instability that is not there with the dollar unless we do stupid stuff like we're doing right now. But even then, no. As long as on April 15th, and I'm pretending this is a dollar bill, there's an ultimate demand for it. There's an anchor.
So, okay, it's my last couple of questions. I appreciate you giving me some time today. I know.
I've been looking forward to it.
No. So, and again, I am not wanting to argue. I'm just trying to get enlightened.
No. You're asking the questions that listeners are going to want to hear the answer to.
Yeah. I just, I wholeheartedly. So what's stopping the U.S. outside of politics from just saying, you know what, we're okay. Let's push the buttons. We're gonna have enough money. I mean, is it just getting everybody else to understand this core philosophy, or are there truly some flies in the ointment about the philosophy that we're talking about? Like, it's my question. Outside of reserve currency, like, what would make this not work?
Well, if we didn't have the resources. If we like, let's say, there's that bridge across the Mississippi on I-40.
Yeah.
Right. Because Melanie, her family lives in Tennessee. And so we drove across that bridge a lot. I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was back before COVID. An inspector was out there and got on the phone and said, we need to shut down the bridge. They said, when? He said, now. There's cracks in the foundation. We've been talking about that for years. If we didn't have the technology or the resources in order to repair that bridge, which was, I saw the mayor of Memphis interviewed later, and he says it's killing us. Everyone's having to go, I think it's I-55, that bridge further south. He says, and it's killing commerce in the town. But we've got the resources to do that. And people talk about, well, we're not taxing the billionaires. That's what we need to do. And I would not disagree in terms of the power that they have, that we should make sure that there aren't people that powerful who can go and rent out all of Venice and have a wedding.
But then that goes against capitalism, though. Like, what? Let people do that. Let the entrepreneurs be who they are. Let them, because now, what did he just do? He just created commerce and capital within Venice, right? So, I mean, isn't that not what capitalism suggests?
Capitalism is about competition, and we've lost competition. You said that. I think you were exactly right what you said earlier about an Adam Smith world, where we have all these small entrepreneurs who are terrified that they might lose their market because they're this close to bankruptcy. Now, it's a horrible world, but that's actually the world that economists in the intro class are talking about being the thing that creates, and that doesn't solve all our problems, but as far as keeping the part of capitalism that works really well, we have to have competition. And numerous studies have argued that there's been concentration of power, and the billionaires are not, by accident. Those come from concentration of power.
Absolutely, my friend. Well, thank you so much. I know we did about 45 minutes. I won't take too much of your time.
That's all right.
Well, real quick, tell the people where they can find your books and how they can follow you.
I guess the easiest thing to do is to go to www.cowboyeconomist.com. And that has kind of a summary page of where my YouTube station is. I have a Forbes blog, but honestly, I haven't written anything in there in a long time. The editor has changed, and they want me to talk about leadership now, and I want to talk about the economy. Anyway, so the previous editor, that's why he hired me, was because he wanted me to write about the economy. Yeah. And the book, it's Cambridge University Press. We're still, working on it. It should be out in December electronically. I'll get back with you then. It was me getting everything off my chest. So I also have another book on different schools of thought in economics called Contending Perspectives in Economics. That is a required course at TCU, which makes us very unique, by the way, required for econ majors, all of our majors must have learned about more than one school of thought. Doesn't have to be the same set, but, and students still for years now have said that is the strongest curricular element of our program, that they loved learning about all these controversies and stuff. Most schools teach one school of thought, the mainstream, and that's it. Yeah. It's mostly what I learned was just one school of thought. So anyway, there's those.
Well, all I'm saying is that we appreciate this. And again, this is a different school of thought. My school of thought is, hey, run it like a household. And I know a government's not a household. You can't be one and the same. And I get all of that. But at the end of the day, when you're borrowing costs.
But you're not borrowing.
Technically. Well, so I guess we'll go there real quick. So we're borrowing from ourselves, quote unquote, right?
No. When we pay that Marine,
we're issuing the debt.
When we pay the Marine, we didn't borrow from anybody. We just put the money in his account. When they gave us $1,200 checks, they didn't borrow it from anybody. They just put it in our account. Now, that then led to subsequent transactions by the Federal Reserve to drain reserves, and there's a legal requirement that we're supposed to have done that, but it is easily sidestepped. John Harvey talks about it in chapter 5.
Dr. Harvey, you're not concerned with the rate of change in regards to the debt level over the last decade or so. You're not concerned about
what I'm concerned with is that we're not repairing infrastructure. We're not educating people.
Oh, yeah. So you're more concerned about where that money is going.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. I don't know who it was now that said this, but the budget is your morality. Yeah. Where the money is going shows the country's morals, and they are not in a good spot.
We know where it's going. It's going to the stock market. Look at the stock market. It's going 2x, 3x, 5x.
Anyway, very depressing.
It's going to the big business. Well, thank you so much for joining me, my friend. I appreciate you. And again, I'll have this out in a week or two. But again, thank you for joining the podcast, my friend.
Anytime. You just let me know.
Appreciate you.
All right. See you later.
Bye. We had Dr. Harvey on the podcast today talking about deficits. Do they matter? In my opinion, I think they do, but he has some very compelling arguments around why they may not. Thank you guys for joining the Nines Podcast. Subscribe to the channel. Go and get my book, MLB to CFP, live on Apple and Amazon. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can email us at info@99capitalgroup.com. Send us your questions. Go to the website at www.99capitalgroup.com. Schedule appointments. As you know, we're here to do what? Educate, empower, engage, and also entertain. Follow us at 9ICAP or at MLB to CFP. Do deficits matter? Hey, great episode. Thank you, Dr. Harvey. Guys, big month coming. Stay home, stay safe, my friend. I'll see you again soon.